Morning, everybody. Do you have an absolute slam dunk favorite movie? Well, for many people, Raiders of the Lost Ark is right up there. And it was on this date in 1981, June 12, that it premiered. In the early days of the silent movie, we had the serials. These were plots that were continuous from one movie to another, and they usually ended with some kind of cliffhanger. The damsel in distress who needed rescuing, and you had to wait till the next episode to see what happened. So these are really popular, really entertaining, pretty simple plots. Many of them were filmed out west because it was cheaper to make movies out west. Lots of light, and you didn't have to worry about rain. There are lots of other reasons why Hollywood ended up moving to the west. So this is a real staple of the early years of movie making, the serial. And then the B movie came out, and B movies were called that because they had a lower level of star power. The A movies had the big stars, the B movies had lesser stars. They tended to be a bit shorter. One of the great B movie directors was Roger Corman, who directed this, but this also had in it a very young Jack Nicholson. So many of the B movies provided the opportunity for some great directors to get started, like Francis Ford Coppola. So here we have George Lucas on the left, Steven Spielberg on the right. They were familiar with the serials. They were familiar with the westerns and the B movies, and a lot of their movies pay tribute to those older movie styles. So here's our event. June 12, 1981, Raiders of the Lost Ark was released, directed by Steven Spielberg, the story written by George Lucas and Philip Kaufman. But who were Spielberg and Lucas? Well, we knew about Spielberg from Jaws in 1975. And if you remember seeing that in the theater, you remember that it was quite a yarn, and probably agreed we do need a bigger boat. And then when the Star Wars movie came out in 1977, we all learned about George Lucas. Now, they'd been around already, but in a big way, now they're becoming popular. 1973, Lucas came out with American Graffiti, which was kind of an ode to growing up in kind of early rock and roll, but it did introduce us to Harrison Ford. Harrison's Ford career, everybody's familiar with it, but here he was, just a young buck in a cool car, and later, of course, he becomes Indiana Jones. We were also introduced to the music of John Williams, and here's a picture of some of the movies that John Williams did the score. You see Raiders there at the bottom in the middle. I think we'd all agree that his music is great. Now, in the plot of Raiders, the Nazis are trying to get the Ark and use it to nefarious ends. The real part of the Nazi ideology, though, is Hitler was fascinated with this kind of stuff, supernatural stuff. So that's a real Nazi thing. Remember this scene with the ball rolling toward Indy and he's taken off? Spielberg loved this, and lots of great special effects in those movies, and lots of razzmatazz and daring do. Another fun thing about the Raiders is on the left you see in the hieroglyphics a very small C-3PO and R2-D2. So Star Wars, nice little ode to it. Well, when the movie came out in 1981, everybody expected the big film of the year to be Superman 2. The pre-buzz on Raiders was not very good. People didn't really expect much of it, I think, but it became the number one box office hit of 1981, and it had some stiff competition. I expect most of you have seen most of these other movies, and Raiders took them all and was number one for 1981. It's still pretty popular. This is a screenshot I took recently from Rotten Tomatoes, and you can see it's still way up there in the ratings with 93 and 96% approval, so people still like the movie. And as you look at lists that people compile of the greatest movies of all time, and here are some of those, Raiders usually is on that list. And I think we'd all agree it's still a pretty great movie to watch.